Welcome to Good Goobyes, the funeral facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
and me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
We're going to discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So, we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goobyes. Hello listeners, this is Tina and Good Goobyes, and I am with a guest today, David Holmes, who's from Ashes to Blooms. Thank you, David, so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's lovely to meet you and your listeners.
Oh, thank you. Well, listeners, Simon might pop in, as he occasionally does, as he, drives his hearse very quickly into his parking spot, jumps out and onto the podcast. So we might see his arrival, we may not, but it's lovely.
Please tell him not to rush for us.
No rush. Drive. He does drive carefully when he's on his, when he's on
yes.
his business.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. So, how did the idea come up then to have Ashes to Blooms? What's it sort of about, David? What do you do?
Well, so it's quite a long step away from my day job, and as we were discussing earlier, I still work part-time in my old profession, but I was always raised with a house full of animals. We had every animal imaginable under the sun: dogs, cats, pigs, horses, chickens, sick insects, everything, all over the house. So I was really raised as an animal lover, and always sort of feeling like home has to have animals. And when I moved to Worthing, I was living in my flat on my own, which was fine because I like my own space. But I really felt like I wanted a pet, a companion animal. And I was at the South of England show one day with a friend, and I'd had an idea about getting a rabbit. But we were walking around the South of England show, and we were in the rabbit guinea pig tent, and it was the most beautiful, small, grey, gorgeous, cheeky-looking rabbit girl. And I instantly thought, she's the girl for me. So she came home with me. I named her Lucy, and she was my friend, companion for 12 years. She in lockdown, when we couldn't leave the house, she was my lockdown buddy. She'd wake me up in the night, and every morning, because I tend to work quite early, I'd sort of go in at 5 a.m. and tell her what I could see outside, and so she knew what was happening outside. And so she was my companion animal, and she lived free in the flat because that woman could not be tamed. She did whatever she wanted. And had her 12 years. She got old, started suffering terribly from arthritis, and stopped being able to even jump in and out of her cage. And one day when I took her to the vet said, it's really time. You sort of crossed that line from, quality of life through to being uncomfortable. So, it was the time to put her to sleep. I had Lucy put to sleep, and, I hadn't thought it was going to be there and then. So I hadn't thought about what would happen afterwards. And the vet said, group cremation or individual cremation. And that was something I wasn't prepared for and hadn't planned on. And living in a flat, I thought, I've got nowhere to bury Lucy or put her ashes. So I said, group cremation. And she went off, and that was that. But of course, that will happen very quickly. But then I had time after that to go away and think about it more and more. And I sort of ended up researching over and over all the sort of things I could have done if I'd thought about loss and having to make a decision beforehand, and if I'd been more prepared. And I sort of was looking at, I'm a huge fan of the outdoors and living in a green way and nature. And because Lucy was a wild animal in terms of she was domesticated, but she was wild. She whatever she wanted. She was such a character. And I just felt there was a lack of, or at least I didn't find, any sort of green outdoor options that really resonated with me. And then suddenly thought, oh, what about seed balls with ashes? So they're these little balls packed full of seeds, as lots of people will know. I thought, why don't we add some ashes to those, plant those, and then the wildflowers can grow alongside the ashes.
It's just such a
And
beautiful idea to have just come from your place of sadness and thinking what you wanted to do
yes,
for Lucy.
yes, it does feel like really that silver lining. And I think lots of people who do work like you and I, they've come into it for a specific reason, haven't they? It's not just been they've gone to school and thought, oh, I want to be a celebrant or, make ashes seed balls. It's things happen in your life and you think, yeah, this is what's right for my life now. And it just comes to you, doesn't it? And you feel like you haven't got a choice, but you've got to follow it.
It leads you to it, doesn't it? And what's really resonated, I mean, I'm thinking of, I as a nurse, I once visited a household and they had 2 indoor rabbits, and it was the most comical visit I did in a long time, David. They were just called Mickey and Minnie or something like this, but they were the cutest little things, and they just ruled the roost, really. So I could completely picture Lucy and you in your flat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't a matter of I'm in the mood for a stroke, I'll go and stroke Lucy. When she was ready for a stroke, she would jump up on the sofa and stare at me, and or sort of bite my arm, because it was my time. It was my job to deliver strokes to her. She knew what she wanted, and she was very clever. She knew how to get it. And then when she started to get the arthritis, she couldn't jump on the sofa, so she would just stand in the middle of the lounge floor, far enough away from the sofa, so that she could see me face on when I was watching the TV, and just stare at me. And that was the sign, you are required to come down onto the floor now and give me strokes. And I would stroke her head.
Yeah. Creatures are very good at this. I have a dog, a Shih Tzu called Boo, and she has an incredible skill. I mean, she'll give you a death stare if you won't give her a second lot of dinner. And absolutely, when she wants to go out, she doesn't make any noise. She just comes and sits in front of you and looks at you in such ways to say, I think you need to take me out. So
they are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, they are amazing.
They don't share words, but they know how to tell exactly what they want and show how they're feeling.
So you came upon this idea, and it sounded, and I'm sure a lot of other people have been in this situation where you're just in this place of surprisingly having to make a decision like that. You haven't really got any thinking time. So I can see how things happen like that for you. And I think a lot of listeners will be thinking, I've had an experience like that. So when you tell people that you turn ashes into flowers, what's their first reaction?
It seems to be quite Marmite-y. So some people look at, well, I'm always surprised because, I've heard of seed balls 8 million times. So first of all, seed balls, people are like, well, what on earth is a seed ball? Is that for feeding birds? So lots of people don't even know what a seed ball is. One, I've explained the concept, and it's with ashes. Some people say that's absolutely disgusting. They wouldn't want to touch the ashes. Why would you want that? Wouldn't want to separate the ashes because we only use 50 grams. So some people absolutely disgust. But I would say probably 3/4 of people, they will say, oh, that's actually really lovely. Yes, actually, I was doing a fair up in Rutland a few weeks ago, and I'd never heard of Rutland before, but I've been now, and it's a real place. And this lady, so I got the stand, and she read what it said, and she thought I was joking at first about the ashes seed balls. I said, no, it's really a service, and we're in hundreds of funeral directors, and we're hopefully going into a crematoria chain very soon. And she was sort of disgusted. But then she came back about 10 minutes later, and she said, oh, actually, that's really interesting. And she took a card, and she was going to go away and talk about it. So because it's, I suppose if we picture going and picking up a box of ashes and just sprinkling them. So to have any sort of contact with them at first does, sort of touching the balls that got the ashes in does not. But it seems to really divide people.
Yeah, bit of a mixed reaction. I had
Yes.
I'll link our listeners into an episode with Richard,
Yes.
who runs what's called the Ashes Register. And
Yes, I know Richard, yeah.
Yeah, and Richard and I were talking in this way about how people are slightly distanced from death. They don't deal with any of it in a hands-on kind of way these days. And our kind of ancestors, they would have been washing people, they would have been preparing people, it wouldn't have seemed so icky to them.
Absolutely.
And, we're a different society now, I guess, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think it's in the same way as food. We were very close to the food that we prepared now. But, for example, people might eat lots of meat, but the thought of going out and sort of removing body parts, isn't appealing. And this is sort of one way I feel like it's what we do is a good way to get children involved, because you can say, grandma's not here anymore, but we've got some of her ashes and we're going to plant them in the ground and the flowers will grow with them. And actually, I wanted to make it even easier for families because, in short, so in the same year that I lost Lucy, about 7 months later, we lost my brother. And of course, by the time I got the business, and Mum said, "Yes, we'd like to make seedballs, and we'll with Andrew's ashes, and we'll all plant them." And actually, my parents came round to my flat, and we all made seedballs together. And in the same way that when Andrew died, we were all sort of sat there in his flat for hours with him, waiting for him to be collected. It was another chance to sort of be with him again and sort of making his ashes into seedballs. But that gave me the inspiration to launch make your own seedball kits for the ashes. So I now offer those at lots of funeral homes. It's much more affordable, and it means so I just provide all the kit, send it out to the family. I mean, they can make the seedballs themselves.
So no, I was going to ask you what's involved in the process, David, because I once had a candle making kit, and it came, and it was so logical and really helpful.
Yes.
So you can make all sorts of things yourself at home, can't you? So this sounds like another opportunity. What's involved in making a seed ball with ashes in it?
Well, first of all, can I just say it is super easy. Anyone can do it at home, probably with things you have in your own house. So I'm all for people doing it themselves. It's just I've created a product which means you can do it in a nice, comfortable way with full instructions. You know what seeds you've got. So I'm not sort of just out there trying to flog my services. If people are finding a great way to memorialize their loved one, then, I love that. But making the seed balls, I think it was a recipe I found on the BBC website. So I just said, how do you make seed balls? And it's really simple. So you take your basic ingredients. So all you need is the ashes of your loved one. And we always use 50 grams because I'm sure people in the industry will know, but Royal Mail will only allow you to post 50 grams of ashes. So, yes, you're nodding. So, yes, clearly you know that.
No, do you know what, though, David? This has come up recently with only recently in a conversation with Richard, and I don't think a lot of people know this because people are saying, like, why can't ashes get posted to me? And the Royal Mail are of the view that they are priceless. And should they be lost, they cannot be insured. So,
no.
Yeah, I only found out recently the reason, although I knew it wasn't possible.
Yes. And of course, you can have them sent by courier, but I've kind of researched that, and there's great ashes-specific services, but of course they cost hundreds of pounds because they're a door-to-door service, not just kind of popped in your letterbox and appear a month later. They are a specific service. So people send me, and the other reason that we keep the amount of ashes low is because of ashes toxicity. So, of course, ashes have got various components in them, particularly for the plants. They've got they're highly alkaline. So if you have a lot of ashes in a small space with lots of seeds, then it's going to impact growth. And that's another reason why often people say, I'm going to bury my friend's ashes underneath a tree. And I'll say that's lovely, but just think about if you're going to spread it out and the volume you're going to put, because a large volume of ashes in a small space it won't biodegrade. It'll just sort of stay there. So just think about how you're spreading it.
Yeah, no, good, really good point, actually. Are there some flowers that are, more suited to being in a seed ball than others?
Yes. So often it depends on the seed size. So when I first started making seed balls, I used all kinds of seeds, but the big seeds, when the seed ball's drying out, sometimes they can start cracking and popping open. So you just sort of learn all these and sort of not drying them too quickly. So yes, so people send me some of the ashes, and then we mix them with UK native wildflower seeds. We only use varieties that bees and butterflies are going to love, and families can choose what seeds they want. So I've got different mixes on the website, our favourites, and then a mix if you've got chalky soil or clay soil, because I just want people to get really brilliant growth. So we do them specifically for different soils. But if people have got certain flowers they love, I will make seed balls with those, or certain flowers that meant a lot to the person who's passed. Then I'll use those so that they're exactly what the family want. So it's simply ashes, the seeds, natural clay powder, which helps to hold it all together, chili powder, which sometimes surprises people, but that's to help deter the insects while they're growing.
Very clever.
And then peat-free compost, and that kind of forms the body.
Perfect. And can you grow them in a pot if you've got if you haven't got a garden but you've got like a little patio or a balcony? Can you grow them in a pot?
Absolutely, yes. So actually, with my brothers, I live in a flat, and I might move in the future, and I don't want to leave them behind if I move. So I've got them in a planter on my balcony. It's south facing. It's loads of sun, and we do have a specific short mix. So that's what I'm growing. And yeah, my brother's flowers grow all throughout the summer, beautifully on my balcony. And of course, because the soil's different where I am, because it's different to where the rest of the family are, we all share pictures on WhatsApp and we say, oh, Andrew's growing this in my garden and he's growing this on my balcony. So we all get to compare what he's doing.
That's really nice, isn't it? That's just lovely. What sort of flowers does Andrew grow in your pot then?
I get lots of poppies, and surprising, because poppies either totally refuse to grow or they grow really well. Poppies, we get daisies. There's some little blue ones. I should know this. But there's little blue ones. I need to look again because it's an incredible mix, and of course it changes throughout the summer as different flowers come up. So we use a few annuals in all our mixes, so you get year one colour. But people always say, oh, they're just going to last for a year. But the majority of the varieties we use are perennial. So we'll keep them coming back year after year, and they'll keep on dropping seeds. So your display keeps them getting bigger and bigger every year.
Perfect. Do they need any sort of special care?
Water, give them a bit of water. That's all you need to do. Because, I wanted something that people can grow and not have to worry about. Obviously, all plants need a bit of water, so keep them watered. And that's absolutely fine. You don't need to give them fancy soil, because wildflowers survive in nature because they are fine with hardy, nutrient poor soils. So yeah, just shove them in the ground and water them.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds really good. Have you witnessed any moments, David, when you've seen the comfort that's brought to people after their loss? I mean, obviously your personal experiences, but have you seen anything that's really stayed with you?
Probably the thing that struck me the most was I had a pair of brothers who'd lost their mum, and they was a local sort of tunnel on the A27 that goes through a local hill, and one of the brothers lives in Worthing but works on the other side of the hill, so he has to drive through the tunnel every day. And their plan was, and obviously I do not advocate planting seed balls anywhere than on land you own or you've got permission for, but he wanted to plant seed balls on the hill above where this road goes, because he said every time he drives over to work through the tunnel in the summer, he wants to see his mum's flowers growing on the hill.
Aww.
So that was really the thing. Out of all the hundreds of people I've met and talked to and discussed plans with, I just thought, absolutely lovely idea. And yeah, you'll get to see a bit of your mum every day, and you'll know she's in that really key spot that he's always going to see.
Beautiful wild space. And I bet you, of course, other people, it would lift their mood as well. They wouldn't necessarily know why.
Absolutely.
But they would have that moment of like enjoying those flowers. How lovely.
Absolutely. Yes. And it was just the fact that it's something that everyone can make something personal with it. So if you've got a little corner of the garden, you can plant some, if it was that corner where you spent time with someone, or as you say, this brother who planted them where he's going to see them every day for work. And, if you're going to move in the future, have them in a planter, and then, Andrew thinks he's going to escape me, but he's coming with me, and whenever I move, he's going to be in my garden.
Oh,
so it's just really, you can make whatever of it you want to.
Yeah. And for you personally, working in this world where there's both grief and beauty, how does that affect you?
I suppose it's, in life, everything I always feel like ends up being very balanced. So if you have a job you don't like, something else in life seems to balance it out. And yes, so I feel that they very much count each other out. So it's something good come from something very unpleasant. And actually, even though the person's gone, they're physically not here anymore, there's something physical left of them, and we can still keep that in our lives and incorporate it into our lives in a way that we can still nurture and tend to. I water Andrew's flowers, and I talk to him, and I weed him out, and I enjoy the bees buzzing around on him. And I think, oh yeah, he would have, because he was an avid gardener. So I think
he would have loved it then.
Yes. And at my parents' house, we still have Andrew's garden, because when we were growing up, he was very autistic, and he would have different obsessions for different times. But one very long-standing one was gardening and plants. And there was one garden he spent a whole summer on, and it's always had his flowers in ever since. So it really is that absolute yin and yang, the balance.
And things in nature. I did an episode with Philip, who grows trees, and we were talking about tree choices for people in memoriam. And I've got 2 trees in my garden. I've got a birch for my mum, who died about 7 years ago, because it's a very dancey tree. And my mum was not a dancer, but she always wished she had been, and loved ballet and loved dance, and was a big Strictly fan. And just even the motion of it, David, and I like to be outside, and I like to commune with her a bit, like you were saying, and just sort of like chat to her, and just, in the form of this tree. And I've got another tree, which is for my mother-in-law, who was a bit prickly at times. And so we've got a hawthorn, but it has the most incredible pink blooms in the spring. And she loved all that. That would have been just right up her street, really. So I just feel when we can continue beyond that sadness, it never goes away fully, does it, or the loss, but we can just find some space where we can communicate with that feeling, really, and with the person that's no longer with us. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. Yes. And I love the fact that nowadays there's hundreds of different options, different sort of ways we can remember people. And at the weekend, I saw those new sort of mushroom coffins. And there's really, we've all got, unique personalities and dreams and hopes and ways of living. And whatever that specific person wanted or how they were, there's always going to be the ideal way to remember them now. And I love the fact we've sort of cast off those restrictions. You must go down to the local creme for your 20-minute ceremony and sing 2 hymns, and then scuttle out quickly out the back door because the people are coming in the front. It's just lovely that we can really all do what we want now, and we're not sort of judged for doing something different, are we?
No, we're not. And there is so much choice. And I think, we say on this podcast all the time, there is no right or wrong. If that is what you want for your person, we'll find a way to make it happen. And if people have formal religion, they usually have particular ideas about what they want. They use certain formats, but nowadays the majority of people are looking for some flexibility, looking for those different choices. And when they know that they can actually have a service in their own home or down the rugby club or in the cafe where they went every Friday for a bacon sandwich, it's just a lovely thing. That's what I really like about being a celebrant, is that you can do something anywhere, and it's quite wondrous, really. And as you say, for remains and ashes, there are so many choices.
It's endless, as you say.
Endless amount of choices. And as you say, also, all the time new things are emerging. Do you think it's moving to a greener place then? Do you see that as you do this work, people looking for more green solutions?
Absolutely. I think you always have to be aware with these things of a bit of greenwashing. Every company wants to say we now offer green options. And actually there was a local funeral director that said about all the green options that they offer on their website, or that they were very green. And but actually, when a friend of mine who I recommended to go in and use them, actually they didn't offer any of these options that they supposedly provide to people. So I suppose you do have to be aware of greenwashing. But it was the Green Funeral Awards at the weekend, as you know, and there were such an incredible range. So this Dutch company, I think they're called The Loop, and they make these coffins from mushrooms. It's not mushrooms, but it's whatever. What's that? Mycelium.
Oh, yeah.
And it's sort of like this cocoon made of, I think it's sort of wicker and mycelium. And there's all these options that genuinely sort of allow us to break down in the soil. And I don't think it's arrived here yet, the human composting.
Yes,
again, what lovely.
Yeah, I've seen posts from Australia about human composting, actually. Yeah.
So there's all these options that genuinely are much greener. All of them have the drawback that if we are going through the cremation process, it does release lots of carbon and use lots of energy. So that's something you always have to take into account. But I suppose it's a matter of making the best of it. So using coffins that are natural ingredients. So locally grown willow coffins, for example, and rather than sort of buying the MDF ones that are made of sawdust and glue. So there's just all ways that you can limit your effects on the environment. And as people do move towards things like the human compost, what a lovely thing to be able to, if we love our gardens, take home compost that's got the goodness from our loved one and use it to feed our plants and our vegetables.
Yeah, it's an amazing art. I mean, it appeals to me personally very much, and I know not necessarily to everybody, but I know what you mean about greenwashing, the idea that people present themselves as having green options, but then things will happen like everyone will travel 20 to 30 miles, if not more, to go to a crematorium, to travel 20 or 30 miles or, back to a venue, and all that travel and petrol and isn't really very green. So,
absolutely.
Top to bottom, as you're thinking about the whole thing, I think you just do the best you can with the choices you have available. But it's really good to know that there's more things available, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we lost Andrew, the funeral, so he, all his adult life, he lived up in East London. So that's where we decided to have the funeral. But there were two options, and basically each of them would have been at least an hour each way. And so it would have been the family traipsing and all, friends and contacts traipsing back and forth across London. And not only, well, actually, I would say the eco aspect was only one very small part of it, but just we wanted to be a day we can all be together. And everyone's sitting in traffic on the busy main road at 10 a.m. on a Friday, but two ways. It's not appealing for anyone, and that didn't seem like a good way to make it a special day.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier about the limited options, we ended up the funeral directors didn't recommend it, but just a few doors along was Hoxton Music Hall, this lovely Victorian music hall. So we went in there, and they said yes, we could have a service there. And then the funeral director came along and measured the doors and said yes, we can get the coffin through. And we ended up having, because it was a music hall, we had someone doing the lights and the music, and it was more like a show. And so it was just, and everyone was just together in that one place. We had the service, and then we all just walked 10 minutes back towards where my brother lived. And there was, in his later years, because he was an alcoholic, he basically lost the ability to walk, and he was always getting food delivered from this it was called the Curry Leaf Cafe opposite his flat. So we were just at a very, very rough and ready sort of Indian cafe, and we all just sat in there and had these gigantic plates of curry, and then they don't serve fancy drinks in a glass, which had tins of Coke, and it was all local. It was tasty. We could all sit together.
Yeah.
We didn't spend 3 hours stressing in sweaty cars. So we spent the time just sitting around talking about Andrew in a place that meant something to him.
It's the most perfect example of really making it personal, isn't it? You know, I've conducted services in all sorts of places, and you absolutely can't have it in a village hall. I did something in a village hall once, and it was a lot of people because he was a very popular chap. And he had lots of new musician friends who had people playing the bagpipes and all sorts of stuff, and it did feel a bit like a concert. And his grandchildren did drawings and put them around the wall. It was super personal, and he was known to be a massive fan of the Cornish pasty. So he used to have this saying, which was, "Don't be nasty, have a pasty." And so obviously we finished the ceremony, we kind of applauded him at the end, and then everyone just turned around and went to the back, and there was all the pasties and cups of tea, which is his favorite thing, and everyone just sat and chatted and had pasties and cups of tea, and it was just the absolutely right send off for him. And as you've said, don't ever be worried to just do it the way that you feel you want to do it.
Absolutely.
Get the guidance you need about the legal bits from funeral directors and ministers and celebrants, but you absolutely should make it personal.
Yes.
Them,
and make it work for you. For that, not spending the day schlepping back and forth across London. We saved 3 hours of our time, got to spend it together. I think start from a point of what do you want, and then sort of work out the practicalities from there. One of the best weddings, actually probably the best wedding I ever went to, so I'm 41, so I've been, most of my friends are married, and a few of them I've been to 2 weddings for them. And I've been to so many of the same weddings where, we go down to Moss Brothers and get our matching, because you're part of the wedding party, matching suits with the plasticky red cravats, and getting married in the sort of the bland hotel conference room that the next day is going to be used for the some sort of local business meeting. And I've been to dozens of those, and I barely remember them, and they leave me quite cold. Whereas the best one I ever went to, 2 friends of mine, they got married. I introduced them, by the way. They wanted to do it very small without even the families there, so we literally met at the town hall in Chichester. They got married, and then we drove, and then we had photos in the park there. One of his friends was a photographer, so we had photos in the park. And then they love McDonald's. And who doesn't like Mackie D's? So we went to the McDonald's drive-through, and we sat in the car and chatted and had burgers and chips. And it was the most memorable and one of the most fun weddings I've ever been to.
Oh, yeah. When you're a celebrant and you do weddings, I officiate weddings and baby namings and renaming for people who change their identity, whatever people want, really. Because I think there's so many moments in life that are ceremonial, aren't they? And, designing a wedding with a couple and they're going like, I just don't want all this fuss. And you're going, why do you think you have to have it then?
Absolutely.
And it's just such a release, isn't it? Yeah, weddings in, on beaches and in woodlands and in your back garden.
Yes.
I did a beautiful one in the back garden last year, which was just magical, actually, really lovely. And
something
very,
like
very
that.
low key.
Yes.
Very
Something like
sorry.
that personal.
Yeah.
I suppose losing Andrew, it just made me, it's just really hammered home because he was 40. So I'm now 41, so I'm now older than he ever got to. It's made me realise how short life is. And so I just think everything you do it the way you want to.
Yeah.
So I've cut down my original job, and so I can focus primarily on Ashes to Blooms. And because, staying in a stable, well-paid job, might mean I get a better pension in the long run. But, we really could, men have heart attacks at 50 or women get breast cancer at 60, for example. So these things could happen to any of us. And do I really want to have done things just the way that everyone else expects me to, rather than the ones that brought me and people around me pleasure?
Yeah.
And I just try and advocate that.
I mean, somebody said to me recently, what's it like working with death all the time? And I said, it really makes you want to live.
Ah, yes, of course. Yes.
And it kind of adds to what you've said, David, which is when you've experienced death in your own family, or you're close to it in the way that we are because of the work that we do, you do start reappraising things and thinking, I should be living a fulfilled life, and be thinking about things like contentment. And it's interesting, there's some research been done that after a death in a family, often people will make changes in their own lives. It's almost like that salutary moment of, am I in the right job? Am I in the right relationship? Am I living where I want to be living? Am I spending my time how I want to be? Yeah.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
I'd never thought, of course. And I suppose, because I hadn't realised that you do sort of all different stages. So I suppose you get to see it from all perspectives. So more than anyone, you're going to sort of realise how quickly you go from that getting married to, potential loss and sort of making the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think every funeral I do there is sadness there because of loss, regardless of whether someone is young or older. There are different reasons why you feel their loss in all sorts of ways, aren't they? But I think that the thing that always comes out is, how people talk about how they lived and the lives that they lived. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, people always say the thing about, you're never going to look back and wish you'd spent more hours at work. And that's very true. And that sort of applies to every aspect of our life, doesn't it? I wish I'd taken more annual leave and sort of done the things I wanted to. And, I wish I'd spent more time with my family. It's just all those things you think. The only thing that separates us from, other creatures on the planet is that we've got total choice as to what we do, and we can get pleasure from things. I'm sure lots of animals do enjoy lots of things, but we can sort of really do exactly what we want. If we want to go to America and become a dancer, it's possible for us to go and try. As humans, we've got the power and the ability to go and do anything. So lucky to live in a time where we don't necessarily, you're not trapped in the same way necessarily in a job, and you think, well, I can't ever leave this job because I'll never get another one. Sort of, I just feel like we have to take all those opportunities to find what's going to make us happy and give us the most out of life.
What a wonderful thing to say towards the end of our time together. I'm going to ask you a final question, Andrew.
Oh, yes.
That's all right, David. Yeah.
Yes.
So, if have you given, when the time comes, have you given thought to what you'd like your send off to be like?
Well, I always wonder if I would like my family to get together. You probably gathered I don't want a 20-minute service at the Cram. My brother's funeral was beautiful because he was a poet and a writer, and the 2-hour, 3-hour funeral was filled with his poetry. But I'm not like that, so there'll be no poetry. But I just think I would like people to get together. I don't want them spending lots of money, because I would like any money that I've not managed to fritter away when I die. I want my family friends to be able to go away and use it for trips they've wanted to go on, or buy some bright pink camper van, or just have great fun. Have some brilliant times together. So I don't want to spend lots of money. Just get together. I'm known for loving donuts and pot noodles. I love pot noodles, but I feel like my funeral will be very inexpensive. Co-op donuts and pot noodles. I feel like it cost £200. My family can get together, have some cups of tea. I'm not really a drinker. Cups of tea, get together, chat about me, say how brilliant I am, and then just go off and enjoy the money that I hopefully haven't totally spent before I go.
Perfect. And enjoy a pot noodle and a donut. Sounds good. Sounds
Exactly.
really good.
Exactly.
Oh, well, let's hope that's a long way off, David, but it sounds brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything final you'd want to say about Ashes to Blooms? I will put all the details in our show notes for our listeners to find their way to you.
No, just if people want to get in contact, please do. I'm not going to try and sell you a service. Lots of the time, I convince people just to go off and do it themselves because it's very simple. But it's just, if I do it, it's done in a certain way and it's all been done before and it's sort of nicely packaged. But I want people to get what they want. So I'm always happy to have conversations with people about what they might be looking for and to guide them to something that hopefully will give them exactly what means the most to them.
Fantastic. What a good way to finish. Thank you, David. It's been lovely having you on.
Thanks so much, Tina, for having me.
You've been listening to Good Goobyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.